During the early days of the Jurassic Park franchise, Steven Spielberg was said to have envisioned the third part of the series to take place in the city. This was an idea that we can see elaborated on when we go back and look at the older scripts for the second film, The Lost World, which originally was supposed to end with Peter Ludlow getting killed on Isla Sorna in a similar way to how Dodson was killed in the Michael Crichton novel. But due to competition from other monster movies at the box office going to the city in their own movies, namely Mighty Joe Young and the 1998 version of Godzilla, the decision was made to take the idea they had for Jurassic Park 3 and turn the end of JP2 into an exclusive Tyrannosaur attack on the mainland. Of course, this would ultimately lead to the restructuring of the entire Jurassic Park series that followed, but it also played a part in how another dinosaur franchise very closely related to Jurassic Park would follow suit. And the abandoned sequel for that project sounds like something the world would have loved. What's going on, guys? Hope you're all doing well. Now for today's video, I wanted to talk about the original plans for the Jurassic Park trilogy, the cancellation of the first ideas for JP3, and how all of that played into the development of Jurassic Park's biggest spiritual ally when it came to modern dinosaur media. By the way, sorry I've been gone for a little while. Life is busy, and these days, when I'm not editing videos, I spend most of my time watching old wrestling matches and reading the Bible. I'm currently rereading Matthew and Joshua, by the way, and my research into that has been super fun, no matter how long it has taken me.
I'm also going to try to finish in a reasonable amount of time.
But I'm always down to talk old school scary dinosaur projects. So to kick things off, believe it or not, Shinji Mikami from Dino Crisis actually took massive inspiration from the second film in the Jurassic Park trilogy when developing that game. The Lost World Jurassic Park was considerably darker and featured more species like Compsognathus and even a cameo from Pteranodons, and that kind of stuff bled into Capcom's new survival horror series, which came out only a couple of years later in 1999. Dino Crisis, for those of you who don't know, is actually very closely tied to Jurassic Park. The first film is referenced in the original game, and Cooper's death by the Spinosaurus in Jurassic Park 3 is remarkably similar to the death of another guy named Cooper from Dino Crisis. It's quite providential, to say the least. The second game came out in 2000 and even kicked off the whole something bigger than the T.rex is going to kill the king of the dinosaurs with the Giganotosaurus reveal. Of course, in 2001, JP3 did the same with the Spino, and while it took a long time, JP6 eventually did bring the Giga into its own franchise. So you can already see there's a ton of influence and inspiration going on between Jurassic Park and Dino Crisis here. Now, the end of The Lost World was actually super influential to dinosaur media in the late 90s and early 2000s. People had been wanting to see dinosaurs loose on the mainland ever since Jurassic Park. It was even in toy commercials, and the small taste people got with the end of JP2 was really surprising. Sure, tons of people hated it, but I can remember having conversations with tons of other people on how Jurassic Park 4 should have raptors littering city streets and dinosaurs running everywhere while people scramble to get them destroyed or into containment. This was a common thing for fans to talk about. Well, the producers of Dino Crisis 3 were on the same track, and they even began development on that game with that sort of story in mind. One of the things that I think nobody really talks too much about is how the original ideas for Dino Crisis 3 were essentially that gigantic dinosaurs loose in the city sort of plot. They'd already teased it in Dino Crisis 2 and The Lost World Jurassic Park, so it was the most logical thing to go forward with. There was even an abandoned concept for The Lost World early on where the T.rex would have invaded a Navy base on the mainland, having a big gunfight and stuff. It was insane. And look, while they were in production for Dino Crisis 3, they even drew up this concept of people fighting back against the dinosaurs with a dead T.rex in the middle of a metropolitan area. The idea was to pick up on where Dino Crisis 2 left off and go in a direction where the time-displaced dinosaurs were all over the place. There was even talk about an AI-controlled ally joining in on the fight, and what reminds me personally on what they ultimately did with Resident Evil 5 with Chris Redfield and Sheva. You know, it's a similar way to how Dino Crisis 2 really feels like a test run for the action that we'd see in Resident Evil 4, but that's a little conspiratorial on my part. Anyways, when it comes to this dinosaurs loose in the city plot, both Jurassic Park 3 and Dino Crisis 3 would abandon the idea altogether. They wouldn't do any of that, and they'd go in completely different directions. Now, in the case of Jurassic Park, they even got back Michael Crichton to help write the script for JP3 in 1998, which was alleged to be a prequel, believe it or not. But he eventually left the project, and the decision was made to go back to either Isla Nublar or Site B instead of a bigger city story. Although early drafts of Jurassic Park 3 would incorporate a subplot on the mainland about escaped pteranodons that were responsible for a bunch of mysterious killings the film would have explored. Dino Crisis, on the other hand, had something else happen to it that changed things drastically. Unlike JP3, the Dino Crisis series was fully dedicated to going to the city and using the dinosaur attack on the mainland plot full force. That is, up until a major tragedy happened to the United States. On September 11th of 2001, only a couple of months after Jurassic Park 3 had come out, the terrorist hijacking of United States planes resulted in the destruction of the Twin Towers, which killed a ton of American civilians in what the terror group would try to justify as being necessary and morally good. Fast forward 22 years later, and this kind of thing is still prevalent in the world, very unfortunately, man. But now look, 9/11 affected everything when it came out. It forced Spider-Man to change its teaser trailer, which showed a giant web in between the towers, and even War of the Monsters, that old video game, would get delayed for fear of being insensitive because of all of the lives lost in the terror attack. There was a lot of falling buildings and stuff. Dino Crisis 3, though, that was probably affected the most out of all of those projects, with Capcom deciding that this level of cityscape carnage was way too much to show off after so many people had been murdered during September 11th attacks. This caused the dinosaurs attacking the mainland plot to get scrapped entirely, and in its place, the group went in a totally different direction that I'm sure nobody saw coming. They pushed the Dino Crisis story 500 years into the future, I don't know, like Jason X, I guess, and gave it a kind of Event Horizon sort of flair with dinosaur-human hybrid monsters on a spaceship. Which coincidentally, look, the dino-human hybrid thing was something Jurassic Park 4 would try to tackle in the early 2000s. I told you guys, Dino Crisis and Jurassic Park, they were very closely related back in the day. Of course, here we are 20 years later, and we still haven't gotten the dinosaurs loose on the mainland idea. Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom teased that plot with its ending setting the story up in 2018, but due to people not really liking that movie as much as the first Jurassic World, they scrapped any idea that was similar to that and went for a coexist message, and once again tried to make an animal rights story out of the dinosaurs, only this time adding in locusts as the central driving force of the plot for Jurassic World Dominion. I still personally view that film as the most un-Jurassic Park story of the franchise, but it is technically another example of the potential for a dinosaurs loose in the mainland story going extinct, just like JP3 and DC3. All in all, I think this idea still has teeth, and it's something both Dino Crisis and Jurassic Park should eventually look into, but I unfortunately don't think it's going to happen unless fans go out of their way to talk about it. Jurassic World has made a pretty obvious decision to be family friendly to the point of it being unavoidable to talk about by fans at this point. It's like, dude, how can you not see it? And Dino Crisis doesn't even exist anymore as a big series. We haven't gotten a game since Dino Crisis 3. So while the potential is definitely there with both properties, it's going to take a lot of fan outreach and, just fans speaking up to actually get that kind of story made. Jurassic Park 3 and Dino Crisis 3 are examples of stories changing radically in order to fit with audience opinions, and to be honest, Jurassic World Dominion is as well. But maybe someday this storyline could happen in either franchise. Originally, Jurassic Park 3 had that whole plot of mysterious killings going on in the mainland. People were like, what's causing all these murders? It's like a Jack the Ripper sort of situation or something. And then it gets revealed at the end, pteranodons had migrated off of Site B and were behind the killings. It was kind of like a thriller, like suspense sort of thing, like what's going on, but never happened. Anyways, guys, those are all just my own thoughts on this subject matter. I think this version of Jurassic Park 3 and Dino Crisis 3, I think they both sound pretty awesome in my own opinion, and I'd still love to see them happen. But with that being said, I'm curious to hear what all of you think. Do you think JP3 and DC3 would have been better with these ideas, or at the very least, a story in their timelines being similar to this? I really think so, but hey, look, I've given my own thoughts and opinions, so whatever yours happen to be, I'd love to hear all about them in the comments down below. Now, before I go, I want to thank everyone that's helped me build my channel over the years. I'd also like to thank every one of you guys who've watched my stuff. You've all been extremely cool to me. If you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate a like and hope that you'll consider subscribing. God bless you all. Christ is King. See you guys in the next video, and as always, take it easy.